Okay, back to flipped homework. I know y'all missed it the last 2 nights. Okay, first thing I need you to do is to fold this in half along the dotted line. Fold it in half. Let me do this by myself so that I can do it straight. Now watch me whip. Now watch me nay. I can't do this. Straight, 1 second. Okay. Now we got it. Okay, got it. So it should be folded in half just like this. Okay. So we're going to start talking about measurement tonight. Measurement. What does measurement mean? We've learned a little bit about different kinds of measurement this year, but this is like our big old measurement unit. Okay. I see these words length, mass, liquid, volume, but what this is, measurement is just the, it's the measure of something. We can measure the length, which is linear, by using like a ruler or a yardstick or a tape measure. So anything that I'm measuring a linear, which means along a line, a linear distance. Okay, it just means along a line. All right. Mass and weight have to do with how heavy something is. We learned about mass and weight at the beginning of the year in science, and mass is how much matter something contains. Weight is how much is the pull of gravity upon an object, right? So it's how far is the gravity pulling that thing down? How big is it? Liquid volume, all liquids. All has to do with liquids. So this is like your gallons and your liters and your tablespoons and your cups and your pints and your quarts and all that good stuff, okay? Either way, we're measuring something. We're seeing how much of something that there is. How many inches are there? How many pounds are there? How many gallons are there? Okay, it's how many of something. So one thing that I need you to go ahead and, so hold on, let me backtrack for a second. So we're going to be talking about customary measurement with this foldable today. Customary is basically what the United States does. There's a couple other, things throughout the world that use this, but for the most part, I'm just going to be honest with you, the U.S. is weird. The United States is W-E-I-R-D, weird. Okay, the rest of the world uses what's called the metric system. Metric system makes sense, okay? It's all has to do with the power of 10. So, everything is times 10, times 100, times 1,000, or, 1/10, 100th, 1,000th, whatever. It all has to do with base 10. Customary measurement, not so much. Not so much. It all depends on some different numbers that you're going to have to just get in your brain, but they'll also be on a star chart for you to look at. Okay? So, so the first thing I want you to change real quick is mass. Mass, this should not say mass. Cross it out. It should say weight. Should say weight. Because when we talk about metric measurement, we talk about length, mass, liquid volume. But when we talk about customary, we talk about length, weight, liquid volume. Mass, metric. Think about that with the M's. Mass, metric, mass, metric. That could be like a beat. Mass, metric, mass, metric. Okay. Weight just has to do with customary. Weight has to do with the pull of gravity on an object. So let's go ahead and open this bad boy up. If you have scissors handy, I would love for you to cut this for me. Just like we've cut every single other door foldable we've done this year. Remember, you just cut to the line. Just cut to the line. Let me do it real quick and then I'll show you. This is a long countertop. My arm's pretty long, but they're just not that long. Okay, so I have these flaps, right? And then that's intact, right? Okay. So let's look at the first one. Let's look at length. So we're going to be looking at, how many of blank are in one blank. So in this case, how many inches are in 1 foot? Think about this. You know the answer to this. You know the answer to this. 1 foot equals 12 inches. That's something that you're going to need to memorize. You need to just remember that in your brain because you're going to be having to work with that conversion a lot. A conversion is just like converting means changing from feet to inches or from inches to feet, okay? Like showing the same measurement but just in different units, okay? 1 yard equals 3 feet. Have you ever seen a yardstick before? A yardstick? It's that long, it looks like a long ruler. That is equal to 3 feet, okay? So I want you to think about what a yardstick looks like, and remember that whenever we start talking about what units of measurement make sense to measure different things. Because we'll talk about, you know, if I have to measure my pencil, am I going to use a yardstick, or am I going to use yards, or am I going to use inches? Probably going to use inches, right? Because it's small. But if I have to measure down the entire hallway, I'm probably going to measure in yards, okay? And I'm sure you've heard this before, and I know my GT friends have heard this before, but if you look down at the tiles on our floor in our classroom, the length of one of those tiles is 1 foot. The length of one of those tiles is 1 foot. So that's what I want you to associate in your brain whenever you're thinking about, okay, should I measure this in feet? Does it make sense to measure my fingernail in feet? No. Does it make sense to measure from here to your house in inches? No. No, we got to think about what's reasonable. Do I want to measure, 18,000 inches from here to your house? Or I just want to measure like 1.5 miles? What would be easier? Probably the 1.5 miles. We want to think of the simplest way to say something. All of the ways would be, we could measure anything with all of these forms of measurement. But would that make sense? Would it be reasonable for us to measure with all of those kinds of measurement for different things? Probably not, okay? So the next one is miles. I want you to think about how long it takes you to drive to your house. How long does it take you to drive to your house? If it takes you more than 10 seconds, it's probably more than a mile. Okay, so 1 mile equals 5,280 feet. You do not have to memorize that. That's why we're putting it in this little foldable. But it is, I have trouble remembering this one. It's just not something that my brain can, it's just not something my brain remembers very well, which is fine because you have your star chart that has those conversions on there. But the rule of thumb is if you have to drive there, it's usually something you would measure in miles. Okay? Let's actually put that on here. If you have to drive there, if you have to drive the distance, you usually measure in miles. Okay? If something is less than a foot long, am I going to measure in feet or yards or miles? No, I'm going to measure in inches. That's the simplest way to do it. Otherwise, it would be like a fraction of a foot or a decimal of a foot, and that just is not pretty. I want it to be as pretty as possible, right? Okay, so we're done with length. Remember, length is linear measurement. It means measuring across a line, okay? The next thing we're going to talk about is weight. Remember, it's not mass, it's weight, right? So let's open that one up. 1 pound equals blank ounces. Okay. Have you ever, let me try to think of a time whenever y'all use ounces. Probably when you are, if you look at any, box of crackers or bag of chips or whatever, if it's big enough, it'll usually have on it how many ounces it is. For example, those snacks that we had after Star yesterday, those crackers we had after Star yesterday, I'm looking at the box right now. Oh, y'all can look too. And do you see how it says 13.7 ounces? So this is customary, 388 grams, that's metric. We'll talk about grams later, don't even worry about that. No, not graham crackers, okay? 13.7 ounces is how much this weighs, okay? This weighs 13.7 ounces. The grams has to do with the amount of matter it contains, okay? Don't pay attention to grams right now. Grams is metric. Remember, mass metric. But we're looking at the ounces. So the ounces tells me how much that weighs. So in 1 pound, there's 16 ounces. Okay? Another thing to remember is that there are ounces for weight, and then there's also liquid ounces, or we call them fluid ounces. Okay? If you look at, okay, here we go. Hand sanitizer. Can we do this? Okay, here we go. Do you see how this says 76 FLOZ? That means fluid ounces. That has to do with volume. That does not have to do with weight. It has to do with volume. It's basically how much, like 1 ounce of this hand sanitizer would weigh an ounce, but it also takes up a fluid ounce. It just means how much liquid would be in an ounce of weight, okay? Milliliters, also metric. That's why, do you see how they have, oh, I've just really never thought about this in depth before, but they put customary and metric measurements on almost everything because there are going to be people in America just think that they just hung the earth, all right? I mean, hung the moon. And they just think that they, you know, deserve whatever, the best. They deserve their stuff to be on everything, even though we're weird. So that's why there's both on everything. 1 ton equals 2,000 pounds. Okay, let me ask you something. I want you to think about how many pounds you weigh. Maybe it's like 50, 60 pounds. I really don't know. I have no idea how much a 4th grader weighs. Do you think that we would measure you in tons? Lordy, I hope not. I don't think we would measure you in tons. No, because a ton is 2,000 pounds. Okay? I wish I could show you 2,000 of something right now, and so you could see that 1 pound of something, that would be 2,000 of those. Okay? An elephant weighs. You would measure an elephant in tons. You would measure a building in tons. You would measure a school in tons, a city in tons. You're not going to measure your Sharpie in tons. You're not going to measure yourself in tons. You're not going to measure crackers in tons. Okay, you're either going to measure those in pounds or ounces, depending on whether it's more than a pound or less than a pound. Am I going to measure a feather in tons? No. Am I going to measure it in pounds? Probably not. I'm probably going to measure it in ounces. Okay? So there is your, oh, go ahead and replace mass with weight inside here too. Okay? Liquid volume. All right, 1 cup equals 8 fluid ounces. Go ahead and add fluid right there. Fluid ounces. 1 pint equals 2 cups. 1 quart equals 2 pints. And 1 gallon equals 4 quarts. I'm going to tell you a little story real quick. It's just going to be a real quick story because I'm going to go into depth with it later, okay? My favorite pizza restaurant is Mr. G's Pizza. Go ahead and draw this. Big G. Big G. Okay? All he serves there are pepperoni pizzas. My family had to order 4 pepperoni pizzas last time we were there. Don't forget to add your pizza cutters, right? Your pizza servers, those little spatula things. So what do those become? Q's. So this tells me that I have 4 quarts in 1 gallon. Okay? And only kind of pizza they have there is pepperoni. So I'm going to do 2 P's. Pepperoni, 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 pepperoni. Okay? 2 pints in 1 quart. There are 2 cups in 1 pint because, I'm going to have to do this in my purple, but because they only serve 1 kind of drink there. Coca-Cola, 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 Coca-Cola. Okay? 2 cups inside 1 pint. 2 cups, 1 pint. Okay? And I wish I could put 8 little OZs inside each C, but I just can't write that small. But we will talk more about each of these individually later. Go ahead and just come prepared with this tomorrow to glue in, or you can glue it in tonight. All right? Thanks, guys. Bye.